Okay, we are going to change and mix it up a little bit right now. We're going to do a Q&A actually, and I get to ask questions. I love putting other people in the hot seat. I am going to now introduce my mate, Gordon Bunyan, who is here from Australia, where it is at about 5:30 a.m. or something pretty awful and early. So I'm hoping that he has had his coffee. Gordon's going to introduce himself, but the reason that we have brought him into this session today is because he has had diabetes for a long time. He's going to tell us exactly how long. And therefore, he has used a lot of different insulins, and his diabetes management has changed over the years. So I'm really excited that I get to ask him some questions about just how that has changed, how things are different now to what they were like when he was first diagnosed, what his diagnosis looked like, what was he actually told about insulin. We've got some really great conversations. Gordon and I have these chats all the time when we're both in the same city, and I'm so thrilled that I get to join our team right now. Where are you, Gordon? Are you coming in so that I can? There you are. Hello, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, Renza. I wish we could have these talks at a more reasonable hour, though.
Yes, I know. And when I'm back in Melbourne, we can catch up at for brunch or something when it's far nicer for you. But thank you.
Indeed.
Getting up very, very early. So thank you to you and to everyone at home as well for you being up and probably clambering around and making lots of noise. Gordon, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, how long you've had diabetes. Let's start with that. How long have you had diabetes?
So it'll be 48 years this year or 49 years. I can't actually remember exactly, but long enough.
Okay, can I just say, you need to know, because in Australia we have something called Killian medals, and they are given to people. The first Killian medal you get is when you've had diabetes for 50 years. So Gordon, as somebody who is on the Killian board, you probably should know this. Please find this out so that you can get your medal.
Well, anybody who was looking carefully would have noticed that I used two numbers in my intro video. So it's actually 48 years this
48
year.
years. Okay, excellent. That's a long time. I'm going to ask you about when you were diagnosed. We haven't got a heap of time because I would love to just really be speaking for ages about this, but tell us a little bit about your diagnosis story. What was your introduction to insulin 48 years ago? What did that look like?
So it was 1975. I was 18, first year university, and I came home from uni, and my brother said, "You look as though you've just come out of some concentration camp."
Oh.
And that, I suppose, was the first thing that started thinking. I was thinking whether I might have had something. But I was treated in rural New South Wales, so that's country Australia, not quite the outback, but it was still reasonably remote. And my first doctor was a heart surgeon. So his approach was reasonably basic. So I don't think he had the brains necessarily that Jocelyn was talking about. But after that, I moved back to uni and had my first association with the diabetes organisation. So the Diabetes Association of the Australian Capital Territory introduced me to my first real and revolutionary endocrinologist, Cress Eastman, who started by saying, don't organize your life around your diabetes, but the other way around.
Yeah.
You need to be living your life first. And it was a great advice, because it meant that every time something new happened, I was ready to take it on. So I started 1 injection a day in Albury, in rural Australia. In Canberra, they moved it to 2 injections a day. And from there, I went to, I think, that was a fast acting and long acting. Then 3 injections. So it went on from there, all with syringes. In fact, I started with glass syringes. And I've, in the last year, finally, after 47 years, I tried a pump last year.
Right. Yes. I'm going to come back and talk about that.
Big changes.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to come back and talk about that in a minute. I just want to say I'm so delighted with the comments that are coming in. People are sharing what time it is wherever they are in the world, and then also how many years they've had insulin. So how many
That's good.
they've had diabetes. So I'm loving that that this is the sort of discussion that's happening. And somebody has said, Gordon, and I will make sure I remind you of this, you need to join the 50 years of Diabetes Facebook group. So when you
okay.
click over, and anyone who else is watching and who has had diabetes for that long, please do jump over and do that. Let's talk about the different types of insulins that you were using. So, you were talking about once a day, then twice a day, then 3 times a day. But you were using you were telling me that back when you were diagnosed, there was bovine insulin, right? Is that what you were using? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I was a combination. When I went on to 2 insulins, I was a bovine and porcine.
Right.
And I have to confess that I'm the son of a grazier, a cattle farmer. So the idea of having pig insulin didn't really appeal to me. I don't know why, but anyway.
You okay with the bovine? Was the bovine insulin?
Yeah, that was okay. It was, cattle, so I knew cattle. And it worked fine. I really, the biggest problem I had with animal insulins were for a 20-year-old who was a little bit vain. It caused clumping on, arms and particularly on abdomen. And I was, used to whinge about it looking unsightly. But apart from that, it worked, very well for me. I mean, I've been very lucky in the way in which insulin has helped me rather than hindered my enjoyment of life.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said to you the other day, but for insulin, I wouldn't have had a life. So it's been really relatively easy from the point of view of insulin. Of course, monitoring and testing and those devices they're quite blunt instruments. And that was probably as big a problem as the insulin itself.
I'm going to ask you, I want to talk about that because you're such a huge advocate for diabetes research in Australia. You're part of the Diabetes Australia Research Program and, obviously somebody who is very, very, pushes research in a big, big way. We celebrate the centenary of insulin, as I said, a huge medical breakthrough. But in terms of living with diabetes, there are other breakthroughs in our lifetime. Can we talk a little bit about monitoring? What was that like as well? And then what did that mean in terms of what you did with your insulin? I mean, if you're not getting an exact number, talk to me about that. What did that look like?
Well, sometimes I wonder what we did with the monitoring, because it was, when I was first diagnosed, it was, 5 drops of urine in a test tube with 10 drops of water and a tablet. And it bubbled. It was fantastic if you wanted to be a chemistry specialist, but apart from that, it wasn't really useful. I mean, it told you whether you had a very high reading or not. It couldn't really warn you about oncoming hypos, particularly. But it didn't really mean that you then changed your insulin regime. You had an injection in the morning and you had one at night, for example, or you mixed them up on both occasions. But really, the testing didn't mean that I could go, okay, that means I can adjust my insulin by this amount. Ratios, I've only learned about ratios in the last, couple of years. So in those days, it just wasn't something that you could factor in.
Yep.
The next advance was weeing on test strips, and they were more accurate and more nuanced, if you like. So the colors were slightly different. And then the change came with blood glucose monitoring, where you put the blood on a strip and shoved it in a machine.
Amazing. Now, our time is nearly up, and I do just quickly want to jump in and ask you both about having moved to a pump and what that's meant in terms of, what you're thinking about your diabetes and in terms of the insulin that you've been using and what that's meant. Has it made it easier? What was, I know, because we've known each other for a very long time, and it's not that you were against pumps, you just didn't think that it necessarily was the right thing for you. So tell me, what was the thing that made you go, yeah, okay, now's the time after 48 years?
The introduction of the concept of a cassette and no tubes, and that's the only thing that changed my mind. Look, I think that that you need a different approach with pumps as opposed to pens, but I'm not convinced that they're the answer. In fact, at the moment, I'm back using a pen. So I don't think it's, for me anyway, it's not the end. I'm looking forward to, and I think I said when we've spoken, when I go onto a pump full time, it'll be when I use a smart pump.
Okay, all right. Okay. All right, Gordon, thank you so much. I'm going to say to you, jump off and go and have some more coffee. Before you do that, we have had people tallying up the number of years people have been living with insulin who have shared. I hope you've added Gordon's 48 years to that and my 25, because currently we're at 420 years or something like that of diabetes expertise in the people who are watching and who have shared how long they've been living with diabetes and using insulin. I mean, I think that most of the people who I can see is sharing, they're people who have lived with type 1 and have been using insulin for the amount of time that they've had diabetes. Gordon, thank you so much for sharing your story. As I said, we will get you back a little later on when it is time for our panel discussion at the end. Go and take a deep breath. Thank you so, so much.